Good morning, YouTube. Welcome back to another video. Today, I have a really special one for you guys. We're at Silver Springs State Park. If you know anything about Silver Springs, you know you're not allowed to snorkel in the spring, and for that reason, it's one of the most pristine freshwater spring environments in all of Florida. However, under a special research permit, you can snorkel here. Today, I'm gonna be with the Florida Springs Institute. They're doing their annual turtle survey, and they gave me permission to film the process. So I'm gonna go meet up with everybody and get suited up. Hope you guys enjoy the video. It's gonna be a good one, and see you out there. Also, check this out. There's a gar right there, right off the bat. Good sign. Gonna be a good day. About 20 to 30 men and women scientists, students, and experienced volunteers were all gathered around discussing the plan for the day. The survey was headed up by this guy, Bill Hawthorne. You've met Bill on the channel before, but mostly outside of a professional setting. Bill is an aquatic ecologist for the Florida Springs Institute, and you guessed it, his primary interest is freshwater turtles. Bill reviewed safety protocols, divided up teams, and got us all prepped for a long day ahead of turtle science. Alrighty. Time to suit up.
Also because I love to work on springs.
Do you have flagging tape?
For the past 3 years, the Florida Springs Institute has been operating under research permit with the State Park Service to conduct an annual population and health survey of the turtles at Silver Springs. Bill started this project and has been leading it every year. Now, in order to learn about wild turtles, you have to catch them first, which is no small challenge. Thankfully, Bill had assembled an elite team of 8 highly experienced snorkelers whose task was to catch as many turtles as possible along a specific section of the spring-fed river.
It's turtle time.
The survey is repeated 2 days in a row, but I'm only tagging along for the first day. My job is strictly just to film everything, so 2 fully loaded boats took us all to the Headspring where the snorkeling would begin. All right, here we go. As the bubbles cleared, an expansive royal blue bowl opened up in front of me, the Headspring of Silver Springs. The underwater clarity was jaw-dropping. In fact, this is some of the clearest water on the planet, as the visibility has been measured to be over 300 feet. The snorkel team was already scattering in different directions as they scoured for turtles, but I couldn't help but explore the Headspring a bit. At the bottom of the back wall of the bowl, a wide crescent-shaped cave yawned 30 feet below me. Out of this cavern, roughly 350 million gallons of water flows up from the Floridan aquifer every single day. There are 30 or so smaller springs scattered along the Silver River, but this Headspring is the blue heart of this freshwater ecosystem. Keep in mind that everything we're about to see on this snorkeling adventure exists because of this spring. As I cruised around the bowl, I spotted a stunning little Florida gar on the edge of the spring. Just look at that pattern. It's like if a leopard became a fish. So cool. This wasn't the gar I saw from the surface earlier, however, but it didn't take me long to find it. A solo long-nosed gar drifted out in the open above the spring. As you can see, its nose is much longer than the Florida gar. On the bottom of the spring, below the drifting gar, I noticed a group of statues and dove down for a closer look. The statues are leftover props from the set of a 1960s TV series, a remnant of a bygone era in Silver Springs history. The spring used to be a private attraction, and before Disney World was a thing, Silver Springs was the most popular tourist attraction in all of Florida. Unfortunately, profit was prioritized over preservation during this time, and the spring was made to be as exotic and entertaining as possible, often at the expense of the natural environment. But thankfully, the State Park Service acquired Silver Springs in 2013, and the focus has shifted back towards protecting the native ecosystem. But I couldn't let myself be distracted by the mind-blowing Headspring any longer. It was time to lock in because the turtle survey was in full swing. I kicked off downriver after the snorkel team. Everyone was darting around all over the place as they searched the river from shore to shore, looking for turtles hiding in a thick meadow of aquatic grasses. Out of nowhere, Bill swam out in front of me with a turtle in hand, and it pretty much all just snowballed from there. Here's how it worked. The first step, of course, was spotting the turtles. This wasn't always easy, as there was plenty of submerged aquatic vegetation for the turtles to hide in, but once a turtle target was acquired, the snorkel team would dive down in pursuit. If the divers were lucky, the turtles wouldn't see them coming, and with a careful but firm grasp on either side of the shell, they'd secure their reluctant quarry and bring them up to the surface. One of the two boats would then come by, and the turtles were handed off to other volunteers who sorted the captured turtles, placing them into bins where they would eventually be transported back to shore for data collection and processing. Don't worry, all these turtles will be released at the end of the day. A little foreshadowing here, but as you'll see, I got to film the release and you don't want to miss it. It was incredibly impressive to see scientific teamwork in action as the snorkelers worked together to capture as many turtles as possible. More turtles captured means more data, and boy was the snorkel team giving it their all. It was non-stop dive, catch, and deliver as the team steadily worked their way down the river. Turtles have a reputation for being slow, but that's not at all the case underwater. Like in this instance, I followed Bill as he turned on the jets to overtake a couple of turtles that were escaping in the distance. Gotta love a scientist dual-wielding turtles. After about an hour of hardcore snorkeling, the team took a much-needed break at the halfway mark, and the first group of turtles were taken back to shore. Everybody stood on a sunken log to avoid any unnecessary damage to the spring vegetation while they caught their breath. But after a short rest, they were back at it, zooming down the river, eyeballs fully peeled for round, armored reptiles. Now, you know I am easily distracted while snorkeling, and I couldn't help but pay attention to the lush aquatic meadows that lined the riverbed. The underwater fields rolled up and down, with their own little valleys and summits. This ecosystem was saturated with some of the most brilliant shades of blues and greens I've ever seen. Often at the base of the valleys were more springs, smaller than the Headspring, but still doing their part to spew liquid life into this system. The grasses in this ecosystem are eelgrass and strapleaf sagittaria. Unfortunately, these dense swaths of submerged aquatic vegetation are increasingly rare in Florida Springs these days, so it's always encouraging when a spring is so abundantly full of plant life. It's easy to see that this is 100%, without a doubt, a great place to be a turtle. Now, as I snorkeled along, following the turtle team down the river, you know I was keeping an eye out for other types of wildlife. After all, it's not every day you get to see underwater in Silver Springs. It didn't take me long to find a few bowfin. These ancient fish are always cool. That undulating dorsal fin was working overtime. I also saw a few enormous red-eared sunfish. It's hard to tell from the video, but seriously, some of these guys were the size of dinner plates. A few more gar also showed up along the way, including this additional long-nosed gar. And then, lucky for me, I found another super curious little Florida gar. Good grief. What a stunning little critter. I'm sure many of you are saying, but Joseph, what about alligators? Well, what about them? Of course they live here too. It's Florida, and we did see a few here and there. This guy was about 7 feet long, but we had a biologist up on a kayak who was keeping a lookout for gators and instructing the snorkel team to steer clear of any that he saw. But every gator we encountered wanted nothing to do with us and just kept to themselves. Honestly, our main concern was keeping out of the way of vessel traffic along the river, including Silver Spring's legendary glass-bottom boats. But one of the best wildlife encounters was when several large gray blobs came into view in the distance. It was none other than the park's resident manatees. Anyway, yes, everyone loves manatees, but we gotta get back to catching turtles. Some turtles require a little more expertise to catch underwater than others. I noticed a handful of snorkelers gather around Bill as he grabbed a long breath and then dove down on top of what didn't look like anything at all. Suddenly, with a puff cloud of mud, he shot up with an enormous soft-shell turtle in his hands. These turtles are as athletic as they are weird-looking. They're basically submarine race cars, which isn't really a thing, but I think you know what I mean. Not only are they fast, but they can dig and vanish into the substrate in an instant, and can also bite incredibly hard when they're scared. With quite a few snorkelers ready to back him up, Bill battled his way over to the boat, and with a big group effort, they managed to get the flailing pancake safely into the bin. They then proceeded to catch a couple more. There's no question about it. These are some of the best turtle scientist snorkelers out there. Oh yeah, and you can't forget the little guys. The team also caught a handful of musk turtles. We finally made it to the designated end site, so the snorkel team and I all loaded back up into the boats along with a second group of captured turtles and headed back to shore. The next step was data collection. Time to measure boatloads of turtles. Like literal boatloads of turtles.
It would work. I feel like we have.
I normally take the wetsuit off at the end of the video, but today, taking it off early because we got a lot of turtles to process. So if you see all these black bins here and here, they're all full of turtles. I don't know how many we got, but we got a lot of turtles. A lot. For starters, the turtles were all sorted. Not only were they sorted based on where they had been caught in the upper or lower portion of the river, but they're also sorted by species, separating the various types of cooters from the softshells and the little musk turtles. They were also scanned for pit tags or microchips. If a turtle already had one, that meant it was a recapture. Recaptures are especially important as the scientists can look at how those turtles' growth and health have changed since the previous survey. When you're dealing with large numbers of wild animals while conducting scientific research, being organized is super important. Not only is it important for quality data, but also for the safety of the animals. The goal is to be as efficient as possible so the turtles can be released back into the wild quickly. So all this sorting is setting up for success. Scientists and volunteers proceeded to set up 3 different stations to process the different categories of turtle. And before too long, we were back in the thick of some serious turtle science. The scientists were using tools called calipers to measure each individual turtle, looking at shell length, width, and thickness. This resulted in a constant stream of numbers being called out.
Surface width is 180,
142, 313,
180,
217,
103.
42.6,
Plastron max is 367.
Each turtle was also weighed. They might not have been super thrilled about it, but thankfully they do tend to stay put when placed on their back, which made it slightly easier for the scientists. New captures received a pit tag with the corresponding number carefully recorded, and photo vouchers were taken of each individual, with a few additional images to document anything unusual. It's easy to get lost in the flurry of turtle numbers and tools, but fully dialed-in data recorders made sure to double-check and accurately record each value as it was called out. Now, the cooters received an additional measurement, claw length, and the reason why is pretty interesting. So for the cooters and sliders, a good way to tell males from females is females have pretty short little claws and males have pretty long claws. Here's the foot of a female cooter. And here's the foot of a male cooter. It's a pretty wild difference. And that's because the males, when they're courting the females, get right in their face, stick their claws out, and then go like this. And apparently that works. You might be wondering, how do you tell the difference between all these turtle species? Well, the Florida soft shells are pretty obvious. Then you have the little musk turtles. This is a loggerhead musk turtle. Notice the especially big head. And then this is a common musk turtle. You can see they have a smaller head with stripes running along their face. And I'll let Bill explain how to tell the cooters apart.
All right, this is a river cooter. You can tell it's a river cooter because they have a V on their plastron here. The plastron's the belly. V for river. This is a Florida cooter. Florida cooter have an all yellow plastron. I always think Florida is the sunshine state. All yellow plastron. This is a red belly cooter. You can tell because they have a red plastron.
As you can see, Bill was low-key kind of busy, so I didn't want to distract him with many questions, but I did get a chance to write some down for him to respond to later when he wasn't knee-deep in turtle science. My first question was, why study turtles specifically? Bill said that turtles are integral parts of their habitat and are actually strong indicators of overall ecosystem health. But scientific and economic reasons aside, Bill also said he firmly believes in the intrinsic value of wildlife, and he just really loves turtles. Next, I asked, what would you say to people who argue that the turtles should just be left alone? Bill said he actually would prefer that, but the problem is humans aren't leaving them alone. Every single day, turtles get hit by cars, poached for the wildlife trade, and lose habitat to human development. As long as these things are happening, scientific research is critically important to understanding and protecting these animals for the long haul. And finally, I asked, is there much conservation concern over the harvesting of turtle shells for use as projectiles in high-speed competitive kart racing? To which he replied, what? All Mario jokes aside, poaching for the exotic pet trade is a major threat facing wild freshwater turtles all around the world. And then came the final step in the process. Each turtle's plastron was marked with a wax pin. This is important so the researchers can determine what turtles were captured on both the first and second days of the survey. The wax remains visible for a couple days, but after that will wear right off. By now, the first wave of turtles from the upper section of the river were all processed for data collection and were ready to be released back into the wild. This meant it was time for me to help load up the boats and suit up one more time to film the underwater POV of the release. Time to suit up one last time. Putting on a wetsuit is one thing, but putting on a recently used wetsuit.
Last one's a soft shell too.
All aboard the turtle parade.
Class bottom boat.
Behind us?
Yeah.
Very close.
Not close.
Okay.
They're just leaving.
All right, I'm gonna get in and then film the turtles as you guys release it. So here we go. It may have been a little miserable climbing back into the wetsuit, but it was 100% worth it to plunge back into the underwater world of Silver Springs one last time. And then came the turtles. One by one, the turtles were gently released into the water where they immediately scattered in all directions, eager to get back to their respective corners of this blue kingdom. In wildlife science, it's always an immensely rewarding feeling when your study animals are safely released back into their natural habitat, and it was incredibly special getting to witness this moment from beneath the surface. And of course, you can't forget about the soft shells. As they came out of their submerged bins, their enormous web feet scooped away at the water as they blasted off. Softshell turtles are a paradox of majestic goofiness. That's about as best as I can describe them. With that, the turtles were successfully released. But before I hopped back on the boat, I turned around to soak in the surrounding aquatic vista one last time. Although Silver Springs may be one of the most pristine spring ecosystems in Florida, that isn't to say that it's free from the many problems facing Florida's freshwater environments. As beautiful and lush as it is, there are still invasive plants and animals to be found, causing their respective imbalances. And although the resident manatees may appear to have a pretty sweet setup in the Silver River, they're isolated from other populations by a faraway dam, limiting migration and gene flow. And a closer inspection of certain areas of the aquatic meadows in the river reveal creeping algae growth, signaling a steady decay in water quality. Nitrite levels in the spring are alarmingly high as nitrogen pollution from surrounding agricultural lands and developments contaminate the groundwater that replenishes the aquifer. This excess of nutrients introduced into the system allows algae to bloom and blanket over native vegetation, eventually choking it out. The water of Silver Springs is also an important everyday resource that Floridians actively draw from, but overpumping of that water threatens to sap the spring's strength and reduce its flow, making it even more susceptible to water quality issues. Although parts of the Silver Springs ecosystem have improved since the land was acquired by the State Park Service, unfortunately, in order to effectively protect freshwater ecosystems, you have to do a lot more than that. Even if you could build an impenetrable fortress around the spring and the river, the water that collects in the surrounding landscape for more than 1,000 square miles all eventually ends up in this place. Even polluted runoff 50 miles away can have an impact on the health of the spring. With the growing threat of new data centers, expanding development, and an increasing demand for water, these springs and all of their aquatic inhabitants, including the turtles, hang in the balance. There's also a growing disconnect between us terrestrial humans and the freshwater aquatic realms that lie beneath our feet. When it comes to championing this conservation of these fragile freshwater ecosystems, it can all be pretty overwhelming, often violently swinging between triumphant wins and disappointing losses. As someone who spends a lot of time in this world and in these ecosystems, I have to admit that sometimes hope can begin to feel like an elusive luxury. But when I meet people like this group of scientists, and I see their love, joy, and passion for these turtles and their spring habitat, it kindles something inside me. There is a dogged, quirky resilience to each of these humans. As I watched all of these women and men wielding cranky turtles for hours with smiles on their faces, their hands covered in scratches and dirt, I couldn't help but be hopeful, knowing that these are the folks fighting to understand and protect these ecosystems. Across the 2 days, the Florida Springs Institute team of turtle scientists captured, measured, and released 240 turtles at Silver Springs. It may be just one piece of a larger puzzle, but this data will help us to better understand and monitor the health of this critical freshwater ecosystem, giving it and all of its hard and soft-shelled inhabitants the best shot possible at a long, protected future.
Final turtle release. Good luck out there, girl.
All right, well, that was awesome. It's always so cool getting to get in at Silver Springs. It's such a special ecosystem. Shout out to the Florida Springs Institute for letting me come out. This is my 3rd year I've been able to come out and help with the turtle survey, and it's really cool to get to come out and film at this time and be able to tell the story. So Hope you guys enjoyed that. Like I said earlier, the Florida Springs Institute is an amazing freshwater organization. They do a lot of work educating about the springs and monitoring their health and working towards their conservation protection. So if you are able to and would like to donate, you guys want to support an amazing conservation organization, Florida Springs Institute is the one to do it. So as always, thank you guys for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed the video, and let me know in the comments if you enjoyed this. I'm hoping to do some more videos kind of like this in the future that give a little bit of a glimpse into the world of aquatic wildlife science, and then also maybe raise some money for some cool nonprofits out there as well. So as always, thank you guys for watching, and I will see you next time.